Hello, hello. We are happy to be here. Welcome to Foul Territory. I'm Tricia Whitaker filling in for Scott Braun today. And of course, we have the always entertaining Erik Kratz with us. And we have Kevin Pillar with us. Don't forget to subscribe, tweet at us, #FTLive, buy merch at foulterritoryshop.com. We're going to have so much fun today. We have so many topics to get through today with the MLB awards last night, all of the awards being given out. We're going to talk about everything involving those. We're going to hear from Ken Rosenthal. We're going to hear from Pete Fairbanks. It's going to be awesome. Guys, how we doing? KP, you want to start? Because you've got some decoration there across your neck. What is that?
I finally had my shoulder fixed. My son's football team's over. I was the quarterback. I had to put it off a little bit, and just a little wear and tear on my right shoulder. Finally got it fixed. Hopefully enough time to get back for my winter basketball league.
So how are you feeling?
I feel good. Honestly, it was a little scope. Not too painful. I feel pretty good.
And why did you get it done? Was it not painful before?
Well, I was in a little bit of pain, but I mean, you get operated on, you expect to be in a lot more pain, but good surgeon, good hands, and I'm feeling good.
We're not going to throw it out here, but you need to check out KP's first pitch that he threw out there for the Blue Jays in the playoffs here. Maybe we have a reason.
Throw it out there. Throw it out there. Yeah.
Maybe that's why. You know what? Athletes, especially current athletes, because KP's technically not retired yet, current athletes, he played this year, play through things. So maybe your favorite player is not doing the best that he can. Maybe they're playing through something. So if your favorite player was Superman, well, you know what? He was playing through something. So good for you for grinding out that one pitch.
I would love to hear, just some of these guys that went to the World Series, some of the injuries that they were playing through. I know George Springer was a human piñata, towards the end, but like the amount of things that these guys were dealing with through the end would amaze a lot of people. And a lot of them would never really come out and say it, but was his oblique torn? Was it not torn? It was like the craziest thing I'd ever seen, but he went out there and posted. So a lot of respect for George.
And most of it you're never going to know because these guys don't want people to know. And I love the trolls on Twitter, and they're just like 65-year-old men sitting at home on their couch talking about how George Springer, whoever it is, needs to be tougher. It's like, really? Okay. You lifted a Twinkie today, and that's all you did. Okay. All right. Next topic. Let's charge the mound because we are going to talk a little bit about the man who won the AL MVP last night. That was a huge, huge topic of discussion throughout the entire second half of the season. Of course, it ramped up the last few weeks. It's Judge's second consecutive victory, also his third overall. He's the 13th player to be named MVP at least 3 times. Of course, we know he won it over Cal Raleigh. Erik, I know what your thoughts were. I know you wanted Cal to win it. I believe you said that yesterday or the day before. Didn't you say you wanted Cal to win it? What were your thoughts last night?
Don't pretend to know my thoughts. Okay? Don't
you
pretend
said it. I listened.
Just because you listened to the show, just because I said Cal Raleigh should win
lying?
It, doesn't mean I didn't pick Aaron Judge. So this is the best way to be, if any of your students are listening, this is the best way to be right all the time. You can say who you think should win and then who should win, and either way, you're going to be right. Look, I'm not going to sit here and defame Aaron Judge for the historic season he had. Obviously, as a catcher, I understand what Cal Raleigh went through, and as an outfielder, KP understands what Judgy did. Judgy wins this. Should have been his 4th MVP, really, if you go back and look at his numbers, some of the years he didn't win. There's so many things that can be said about him, but all that he does on the field, he is that much better of a person. So it's so cool to see anytime an ex-teammate gets something like this, gets an award, gets recognized for something, like it's so well deserved. And it's crazy to think he had that much better of a season than Cal Raleigh when Cal Raleigh had a historic season. So, and good for the voters. I thought the voters did an amazing job.
I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I was kind of on the same page as you. Early on, I said I wanted Cal to win. I felt like what he did was historic. But I also don't think we should, fault a guy if he's winning an MVP every year. I think, when I really when it came out yesterday and I looked at Aaron Judge's numbers, and I think someone talked about it, it's a video game number. What he did is historic in itself too. And, like Kratz said, he's an unbelievable player, unbelievable human, a great ambassador for the game. And I think we're witnessing one of the greatest players to ever play this game. I think we're very fortunate, and I hope people don't take it for granted what Aaron Judge is doing, at his size, his structure, to be able to go out and hit 330 in a game where no one talks about batting average and it's not important, but it was important for him. And the guy's on base nearly half the time. It's unbelievable what he's able to do. And I feel like he's only getting better. We always talk about guys as they age, they're supposed to decline. He's only getting better. And I think that I wouldn't be surprised if he wins another one next year. That's how good he is.
I mean, it's a credit to him for wanting to improve, for wanting to have a batting average. And, he still had 53 home runs. After a year where he had 58. The year before he had an injury because of the concrete at Dodger Stadium. And before that, it was 62 homers. Like, he's not afraid of trying to improve when he's already at the top. He is the top. And so that's when it's dangerous. When you have a physical specimen, when you have a guy who is already just driven in a different way than other people, and then you go ahead and say, he's doing this in New York, where a lot of people fade, a lot of people can't handle the spotlight. And it's like, well, if it wasn't for the rigors of New York and all the stuff that really goes into being the captain of a team, no, he's continued to improve. And I can't, there isn't words to say other than you need to go out and watch what this guy's doing. Because last night when they announced he won the award, we started going through my kids' stats, like on Game Changer and stuff like that. And my daughter was like, wow, I had a really good fall. She was like, my OPS was, and she didn't even know what OPS was until last night when I was telling her. And she was like, my OPS was 1.143. She was like, she looked over the screen. She goes, Judge beat my OPS by 1 point in the big leagues. It kind of like, it kind of was a full circle moment for a 13-year-old. And it shows what this guy is doing is really video game stuff.
Yeah, and it's not to say he doesn't have guys around him, but Kratz, as a catcher, anytime you're playing the Yankees and you go into scattering reports, don't let Aaron Judge beat us. And still, he finds ways to hit for a high average, hit home runs. And he missed I think he missed over 2 weeks this year with the elbow injury. So his numbers could have been even better from the power production standpoint.
Yep.
So I think both, one of the things that I think you can do is you can say both can be true, right? They both had incredible seasons, and it doesn't take away from Aaron Judge's season when you say you thought Cal Raleigh should have won the MVP, because that's what I thought, right? I don't think that of course Aaron Judge had a historic season, but when I think MVP, I think who was the most valuable player for that team. And in my opinion, Cal Raleigh was the most valuable player for his team. He's a switch hitter. Obviously, he did what he did at the plate, but catching that pitching staff too at the level that he did, to me, all encompassing, Cal Raleigh was the MVP for his team. But that's not saying that Aaron Judge's season wasn't obviously historic and impressive. But I think both can be true. But when you think about, which is actually what a lot of the voters said when they talked about why they voted for Cal Raleigh, because some of the voters, guys, released why they voted for who they did, which I love. I love that. If you voted in this, you need to explain yourself, and we need to know, and we do, right? For these people who explain themselves, why they voted for Cal, why they voted for Aaron, right? So Tyler Kepner talked about how he voted for Cal because it's important to honor history when it happens. And Raleigh's home runs, 60 home runs, set not one single season record, but two. And then he mentioned how he did it across 705 plate appearances, which is, quote, a staggering total for a backstop. So I guess, KP, for me, when you look at these voters releasing their reasons, how much do you value when they decide to say, this is who I voted for and why?
I love it. I mean, I always think about the Hall of Fame ballot, and people don't want to, sign their name on the ballot and make them public. Like, I think when you have the right to be a voter, I think it's cool to be able to explain yourselves, because not everyone's going to have the same opinion. I always try to argue with people on Twitter or X all the time. Like, I always say, this is my opinion. Like, you can't argue with my opinion because this is how I feel. So when these people come out and have a vote and they explain themselves, I can't argue with what he's saying. I just think the MVP across all sports has turned into who's the best player. When you talk about a person's value, it's really hard to quantify a player's value. Obviously, I would say as an outfielder, I'd like to think I was really valuable, but a catcher is obviously the most valuable person on a baseball field. They have to hit, they have to handle a pitching staff. They have 13, 14 guys. They have to know, what their out pitch is, what makes them tick, what makes them successful, how to get them back in the zone. For a catcher to do what he did is historic. And I'm not one here to say that everyone deserves a trophy, because we live in this world where everyone feels like they should be a winner. But I wouldn't have disagreed if they had co-MVPs this year, because I think what Cal did deserved to be an MVP because of the historic context of what he did. But it shouldn't take away from what Aaron Judge did, because it's arguably one of the best offensive seasons we've ever seen.
Yeah, that's how impressive what both of them did. We're willing to say, all right, we will give co-MVP in the world of being anti-participation trophy, which I assume all three of us on this call are right now. That's a great point. But what we want to also talk about is what we all knew was going to happen, and that is Ohtani winning NL MVP. Of course, we know it marks only the second time a player has won MVP awards in 3 consecutive seasons. Erik, I'm not going to ask you to react to him winning. Obviously, we all knew that was going to happen. But when you do look at Ohtani winning unanimously, what comes to mind about his season and what he did?
I think we're going to get watered down with Ohtani stuff. I think he's watering down what he is accomplishing. 3 straight MVPs, awesome. The fact that this year he was doing what he did offensively while rehabbing. Next pitcher we have on that has had an injury ever in their career, talk about the fact that, you had to rehab and it's a grind of a year. Like we had Shane Bieber on, he's like, there's some days where you're not sure if you're going to feel good. There's some days where you're like, whew, I pushed it. I need extra recovery. You know what Shohei did? He let off that game. And then he had to redo it again. And I get it. Some people are going to troll and be like, well, he only pitches once a week. He's all this. Stop. Just because Shohei, the rest of the league is not watering down Shohei. Shohei is watering down what Shohei has done. And this is his award for the next 8 years that he is under contract with the Dodgers. Until he proves that he can't, A, hit and pitch, and his hitting then goes down, that he can't run the bases, that he can't, this is his award. I'm sorry. I want to look at the odds for next year, but I'm going to throw some money down if it's plus money, because he might be the first negative money that I've ever seen for a MVP award, because he's going to stay healthy and he is going to win the award if he finishes an entire season.
Yeah, I think it's crazy too. You talk about the 3 straight MVPs, and they've all been 3 different types of years. Obviously, the first one he pitched and hit. Last year he didn't pitch at all. When we watched him go out and do something that's never been done in the history of the game and go 50-50. And then this year he has to rehab, work his way back, doesn't make any minor league starts because he's the leadoff hitter. He's their most valuable player. And then he goes out and pitches the way he does. It's incredible what he's able to do. And to your point, Erik, I hope people don't get bored of watching what he does, because I don't think we'll ever see anyone like him ever again.
No, you definitely don't want to take for granted what these guys are doing. And you don't want to take for granted what a guy like Judge is doing either, even though we did talk a lot about what Cal Raleigh did. But guys, one thing I want to pose to you, how thankful do you think that Aaron Judge is that Ohtani signed with an NL team?
Oh, so much. So much. I mean, Ryan O'Hearn said it on the show when Devers got traded. When Devers got traded to the Giants, he was like, I just moved up in the DH discussion for the All-Star game. Obviously. But I would have loved to have seen that conversation, because we had that conversation and I thought Shohei did a little bit more than Judge the one year where Judge hit 62. So that conversation would be fun to have too. But yes, he's super juiced because you're just not beating Shohei. He's the best player in the game.
I agree. I mean, he's got to be thankful. I mean, does it take away from Aaron Judge's greatness if Shohei's still in the American League and Aaron Judge doesn't have 3 or 4 MVPs? Maybe. when it comes to Hall of Fame ballots and, who we put up there as some of the greatest players. But I think he's very thankful they're in different leagues because it's these two guys' awards to win until someone figures out how to take it from one of these guys. And I don't know who's the guy who's going to be able to do it. In the American League, I could see a guy like Bobby Witt putting together a historic season and maybe figuring out a way to steal an MVP from Aaron Judge. But we just watched Cal Raleigh do something that's never been done in the history of the game, and Aaron Judge still won. So I think it's these two guys' awards until these guys decide that they don't want to win anymore.
I was going to say, what more does somebody have to do to steal the MVP from Judge than what Cal Raleigh did? That's a great point. All right, next we're going to be joined by Ken Rosenthal, and he's going to give us the inside scoop.
Kratz Pop Quiz. What has 35 grams of protein, 6 grams of fiber, 27 essential vitamins and minerals, comes in excellent flavors like, of course, chocolate, vanilla, but chocolate peanut butter, my favorite, no added sugar, gluten-free, under $5 per meal, and is ready to drink.
Go out the house, get yourself a Huel. Look at you. You even have one right there. Ready to smack that, John? Chocolate peanut butter, chocolate, and vanilla. Deliciosos.
Also, there is a new daily greens ready to drink, 42 vitamins, minerals, and superfoods. Only 25 calories on that one, 4 grams of fiber. There's flavors like blueberry, apple, peach. Huel makes healthy eating simple. They also just launched into Target stores nationwide. Try both products today with 15% off your purchase for new customers with the code FOUL at huel.com/FOUL. Use that code FOUL and fill out the post-checkout survey to help support FT.
All right, we're going to talk about one of my favorite teams to cover this season, and that is the Milwaukee Brewers, because Matt Arnold won Executive of the Year. Personally, I think he was wildly deserving of that award, seeing what he did with the Brewers, a franchise record, 97 wins, the best overall mark in Major League Baseball. Erik, how deserving do you think Matt was of winning that award after what the Brewers did?
Obviously not a fan of any team. After you're done playing, you just kind of follow people. Matt Arnold is one of those people. No matter where he ends up going, if he stays with Milwaukee, like getting to know him as a assistant GM or whatever his actual role was, I knew he was going to be a guy that was going to be able to take over some type of franchise, some type of organization, and do what he's done. Just because of how he is down to earth, but he's not afraid of making the tough choices. He's able to evaluate talent, but he's also able to evaluate human beings. So I couldn't be happier for him, and congrats.
I got no argument with it. I agree. I mean, best team in baseball. Obviously, Kratzy was there. He knows him a little bit better than I do. What he's been able to do with, not being able to go out and spend a ton of money and just put a competitive team on, make the right decisions and, allowing Counsell to go and bring Pat Murphy in. You got to give him a lot of credit for that. And I guess the tandem of those two guys, winning executives and manager of the year is working.
All right, it's now time to welcome in one of my favorite people in baseball. That would be our very own Ken Rosenthal, senior writer for The Athletic, MLB on Fox, field reporter, insider for us here at Foul Territory. Ken, you just got back from the GM meetings. I know there's a lot of buzz around those meetings. Some of it is earwash. Some of it is legit stuff. What was the vibe around it? Tell us.
There's a lot of eyewash. There's no question about it, Tricia. But what's different about the meetings these days, the GM meetings, is that teams are still very busy staffing, hiring coaches to be with their new managers. In one case, the Colorado Rockies, they still need to hire a manager. So a lot of GMs and baseball operations types are occupied with that. But at the GM meetings, they do generally start to talk about players. Meetings take place between teams and agents for free agents. and meetings take place or conversations take place between heads of baseball operations for different clubs. So you'll often hear after the fact that the groundwork was laid for this deal or this trade at the winter meeting or at the GM meetings. And that is kind of the function of them. What has changed a little bit, as I mentioned, is that a lot of the teams are still occupied with finding coaches. And it's been a kind of a crazy offseason in that way, with 9 new managers being hired.
Okay, let's talk a little. Go ahead.
Oh, no, sorry. Does it give you a chance to sit there and go, okay, I'm rekindling these conversations for you? Or are you like, yeah, I could probably have just texted this person?
Actually, Erik, it's a great question you ask. I could text everybody. And you might even say the GM meetings and the winter meetings are obsolete for that reason. However, you do get to see people in person. And it's nice to see people you haven't seen in a long time, not just GMs and agents, but also writers. And from that perspective, there is that human face-to-face element. We don't get a lot of FaceTime with these guys. They're kind of busy, and they give us 1 hour of availability with the American League heads of baseball operations and then 1 hour with the National League on different days. But I always think there's value, much more value, to talking to someone face-to-face than texting them. I'm old school.
Ken, question for you. I know baseball is a little bit different in its free agency because we don't have a salary cap, but what's stopping teams from just making things happen? You know, saying, I want Edwin Diaz, and just going to get him the first day of free agency. I know there's arbitration. I know there's qualifying offers teams have to figure out, but we have smart people. You could kind of figure out your salary, what these projected arbitration numbers are going to be, you know, maybe if a guy gets a qualifying offer. But why is baseball the only sport when free agency opens, nothing ever happens?
Kevin, this is a great question. A lot of fans have this question too. Why does this drag on for 3 months? Now, some fans actually like it because baseball remains in the news rather than having free agency over in 4 days. But it seems to me that the reason the calendar works like it does and the pace is what it is because there's no deadline. And when we have the trade deadline, you see action, and you see the action peaking on the last day because the deadline is driving that movement. We don't have that in baseball. And for whatever reason, these things seem to go at their own pace. The winter meetings are often a center of activity, but even then, only certain things happen there, not everything. And you'll see deals drag into late December, January, even February. It's just the way baseball works. I don't like it. I don't know that anyone in the sport likes it. Actually, there are a lot of people on all sides of the spectrum. Media, baseball operations, agents, everyone would like to see this compressed, at least in terms of their own personal lives. But the union does not want to set any deadlines because they believe that restricts the market somehow. I would argue that maybe it would drive the market, but that's always been the union's position. No restrictions on the market whatsoever.
Yeah, that was going to be my follow-up is could they implement a deadline? And then the other question is, I feel like from a player's perspective, we always kind of assume that the longer you waited, the fear became on the player to the pressure to sign maybe a deal. Do you think there's a way around either of those two things?
As for a deadline, there have been ideas floated. It would have to be collectively bargained. Both the players and the teams, the owners, would have to agree upon it. And it would seem to me that it could be structured in a way where it worked for everyone. Maybe you have a trade deadline at the winter meetings where no trades after the end of the winter meetings, and then the free agent market would open up right then. There are all kinds of ways you could do it. And Kevin, there's no question, too, that teams use the calendar to their advantage. They wait and wait and wait and try to squeeze certain segments of the market. Maybe there are an excess number of relievers that, hey, if we just wait, these guys are going to panic and they'll sign for less. There is no doubt that that takes place.
Ken, I just want to say that I agree with you on the old school face-to-face stuff. I don't ever want to go back to the pandemic. You remember when we couldn't even see anybody face-to-face? And there is a value. I teach my students that all the time. I'm like, it's so valuable to be face-to-face with the people that you cover. There's just something about talking to them in person. So I'm glad that the GM meetings are still in person and the winter meetings are still in person, and you can't just text these guys all the time. I mean, you can blow up their phone if you want to, but face-to-face is always better. Let's talk a little bit about what you just wrote Ken, about the Mets. With Edwin Diaz on the market, you said a perfect storm is brewing for the Mets to lose him. We know that he's testing free agency the first time. He wants that payday. We also know what has been said from the Mets, not afraid to replace him by diving into a large market for closers right now. What's the latest?
The latest is what Edwin Diaz said last night at the MLB Awards, which is that he's 50-50 to re-sign with the Mets. Now, Tricia, obviously, and you know this, everyone knows this, at this time of year, there's only so much you can believe about what is coming out of anyone's mouth, and it's kind of up to people like me to figure out what's real and what isn't. Now, what's real here is Toronto, the Blue Jays, want to add high-leverage reliever and a starting pitcher. Not necessarily in that order. The starter actually is the priority right now. But we all saw what happened in Game 7 of the World Series. 2 outs away, Jeff Hoffman gives up the home run to Miguel Rojas. A closer for the Blue Jays would make a ton of sense, and they are motivated right now to do things. We know that. We also know that David Stearns, as president of baseball operations of the Mets, is a guy who is disciplined. He adheres to, or tries to, certain thresholds for certain players. He doesn't want to go above. He will in response to the market. But if a team pushes the Mets, and it doesn't have to be the Blue Jays. I focused on them for the most part in this column, but it could be the Yankees, it could be the Tigers, it could be the Braves, it could be the Dodgers. Any number of teams might say, you know what, I really want Edwin Diaz. Now, he's a reliever, and relievers making $100 million over the course of a contract over 5 years, that's a risk. There's no question about that. And Edwin Diaz is going to pitch next season at 32. But as we know, all it takes in free agency is one team. And Diaz has been that good. He's by far the best closer on this market, that maybe one team jumps. And then that's the perfect storm. If it's the Blue Jays, for instance, a team that is motivated, when you have a proud player who wants to be recognized for what he has achieved. He had a great deal the last time, but he wants a similar type deal this time. And then you have a Mets team that, yes, of course, with Steve Cohen as their owner, might just simply say, we'll pay him whatever we need to pay him, but not necessarily. So all of these things, I don't know that any of it will take place, Tricia, but what I wanted to outline in this article, and I know there were some people in the comments saying, what's the point here? It's clickbait. It's the usual trolling. But there is a point. And the point is, here is a scenario. Here are the situations at hand in this particular case and how it might develop.
Does the amount of people on the market, not just people, the amount of high end, Robert Suarez, the fact that now I guess Pete Fairbanks would be below Suarez and Devin Williams and Edwin, does that make the closer, I don't even call it the reliever market because everybody says they need a reliever. Does that make the closer market the one that's possibly going to go first because of as much high-end talent? If there was just one guy, then it would be like, I can drag this out. I'm the absolute bee's knees here.
Possibly, Eric. And I say
Right.
Possibly because it's always impossible to predict how this is all going to play out. But I would think that if a team jumps out on one of these guys, this is often the case. What happens in free agency, you see a run on closers. You might see a run on middle relievers at one point, on outfielders. So yes, it's possible that this happens quickly, and it's also possible that teams posture and they wait, and the players wait as well for what they want, and they're not getting it, and this drags out for however long it might drag out. So it's really hard to predict timing. Obviously, with no deadline, it's really difficult. So I'm not sure exactly how it might go. But if you're asking, is there a world in which this kind of starts to happen going into the winter meetings and right after? Yes, I would think that is the case.
I want to beat a dead horse. I want to go back to our previous conversation. Do players, agents, and even executives feel like they lose leverage if they just have a little bit of transparency? Like, what's the harm in a team coming out and say, we'd love to trade for Tarik Skubal? Like, whether you do it or not, that's whatever happens behind closed doors. But why does everything have to be so cryptic?
Actually, Kevin, I have an answer for that. With regard to trades, it's tampering when you openly say you want another team's player. With regard to free agency, there are rules in the collective bargaining agreement about how teams cannot talk in certain ways about free agents. The reason for those rules is that from the collusion era, which took place in the late 80s, early 90s, and has flared up again from time to time even since. Public statements were sometimes used against players, and when teams would say we're out, that would be an effect on the market, and that is why those rules are in place. So we don't have transparency, and teams try to be as careful as they can, and agents and players too, for the most part, with regard to what they're doing. Now, you will see, sometimes it's coming from an agent, a report saying team X, Y, and Z are interested in player C. That can happen, and often it does come from the agent, but for the most part, it's pretty tightly kept, all of these desires of teams, and leverage is the reason, and also the rules that I just stated. That's the other reason.
Ken, where you live, there is no rules. So we can ask you whatever we want to ask you. So I'm going to go to the starting pitching market, and not so much free agency, more the hot debate of the trade market, because we saw what the Red Sox got when they got Garrett Crochet last year. They got the number 2 in the Cy Young. But ironically, number 1 in Cy Young, Tarik Skubal, has been rumored. Where do you see this market going? And are there other names that are clearly below Skubal, but have not been pushed out there yet?
Well, this is an interesting conversation going on right now, and it was going on at the meetings about which starting pitchers might actually get traded. And I wrote about this in a notes column earlier this week. So the Tigers are saying they don't want to trade Tarik Skubal. The Brewers are saying we're not trading Freddie Peralta. Of course, Paul Skeens is not getting traded. Even the Twins with Joe Ryan are saying we'd like to build around Joe Ryan rather than just peddle him. There are some teams that believe, teams that are interested in these pitchers, that these other clubs, the clubs with the starting pitchers, are merely posturing, and that at this appropriate time, they will certainly open up the conversations to a greater extent than they are now. And in the Tigers case, for instance, it's just a matter of, okay, we'll play hard to get, and then boom, strike a big deal. That could happen, but the Tigers, from what I understand, what they're saying, at least right now, and it might be BS, for lack of a better phrase, but what they're saying right now is we want to win in our last year with Tarik Skubal. We do not want to trade him. And it would send a pretty bad message to their fan base if after 2 years of making the playoffs with Skubal being the centerpiece of the team, that suddenly they shipped him out for a process of evaluating our future with the Padres, including a potential sale of the franchise. Now, one thing I didn't mention yesterday, and it's worth mentioning, we've seen in recent years the Twins come up for sale, the Angels come up for sale, and the Nationals come up for sale and ultimately get pulled off the market. Now, the Orioles were sold, the Rays were sold, there were other transactions. Cleveland took on a path to control with minority investors. But just because a team says it wants to sell doesn't guarantee a sale will take place. Now, with the Padres, you have the widow of Peter Seidler suing 2 of his brothers, and it would seem to me that that alone is motivating this perhaps. But who knows if the Padres get their price with the CBA expiring in December 1st, 2026, with all of the TV contracts in baseball still unsettled, the national TV contracts beyond 2028, and also a lot of local deals. The Padres have been hurt because they were one of the teams that had their local deal pulled out from under them. So whether a sale happens or not, it's difficult to say, but the intent seems to be there, and it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out, Tricia, because the Padres are a team that, while they're having difficulties on the TV side that a lot of other teams are having too, man, they're drawing $3 million a year. They are booming in San Diego. An owner or prospective owner might want to get in on that.
Absolutely. They are booming in San Diego. Those fans are amazing in San Diego. I loved covering the Padres on Apple TV this year. Ken, thank you so much. Make sure to check out Fair Territory on Mondays and on Thursdays with Alana Rizzo. Ken, we appreciate the time.
Thanks, Tricia.
All right, next we are going to talk about, are the Mets in trouble? We get into it in Spreading Rumors. All right, always good stuff from Ken Rosenthal, always insightful. We're going to talk a little bit more about the Mets later on, but first, guys, Let's talk about reliever of the year. Aroldis Chapman, obviously the AL reliever of the year, and then Edwin Diaz for the NL. Not surprising here really with Chapman, but Erik, we'll start with you. What'd you think of Chapman's season, especially at 37 years old, and what he was able to do?
The ageless wonder. He really is.
Fine wine.
It's amazing. And I would call him more motivated than anything. You heard his comments on, I forget what, Completo. Completo was the show, the Spanish show. And he was like, I will never sign with the Yankees. And signing with the Red Sox for essentially a deal he probably could have gotten at a lot of other places seemed pretty, not spiteful, but he was on a mission. And he showed it this year. Like, I think last year Ben Joyce threw a pitch at like 105 or something, and he threw one at 104 just to show they still got it. Like, he knows what he needs to do, and he was very motivated this year. Being in the Yankees division, I think he really wanted to show everybody, but also the Yankees, what he could do. Got a nice little contract extension, so good for you, Chappie. But as he knows, I still own him. That's it.
Yeah, you would think at some point he would just age, but I know off air we were talking a little bit about the use of Instagram, and I love following Aroldis Chapman on Instagram, and it's no surprise he's still able to have the success he has. I mean, this guy's an absolute monster. I've never personally played with him. I have some friends that have played with him on various teams that he's been on, and they said this guy's an absolute animal in the weight room. Every single day he's working out, so you got to give him credit at age 37 to, arguably have his best season, sign the contract extension to stay in Boston. That guy's an absolute nightmare to face. Never loved facing him. I can't say the same thing as Kratz. I did not own that guy. I don't think he owned me. I just think it was a tough matchup.
Owned.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a tough matchup, but Edwin Diaz on the other side of things, on the NL side of things, the reliever of the year award for him. Erik, real quick, before we start talking Mets, what'd you think?
I mean, he did it. He did it in the big market. He did it in a contract year. Some guys fold under their contract year. Not contract. He still had money left, but it was time to get out, and now he's going to get paid.
All right, we are back here on Foul Territory. We're talking spreading rumors. And first, we got to talk about the Mets offseason outlook. We talked with Ken a little bit about the article that he just wrote about the Mets, talking about how it might be a little bit of a storm this offseason for them. We will start with Pete Alonso, right? We went through this debacle with him last offseason, what he was going to do, all that stuff. KP, let me start with you on Alonso this year, because what they're saying, or this offseason, what they're saying right now is that the Mets are expected to lose him.
Yeah, I mean, he obviously was very open last year about wanting to be a Met, and maybe he shot himself in the foot a little bit and didn't really put himself out there. And, sometimes a player just knows what they want, and he wanted to be a New York Met, and it wasn't reciprocated. And he went out and had an unbelievable year again, a monster year. And I think he goes out and tests free agency. But, I think the Mets have some tough decisions to make, because Pete Alonso is part of the fabric of what the Mets are and who they've been, and he's been there for a long time. And I think Steve Cohen's got some tough decisions to make too, because although the Juan Soto deal didn't work out from a personal standpoint, he had an unbelievable year. I think he finished third in the MVP voting. They didn't make the playoffs. So maybe not throwing money at every single player is maybe not the right way to go about it. But I feel like if Pete Alonso is not a Met, that's a big hole to fill at first base.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. Pete had a down year going into his platform year before last year, and you know what? He got a small deal, but I think there is very few players that are more synonymous with one organization. I think Pete's that guy. I think the Mets also know with that they can get him at a discount, because his market is pretty capped because of the amount of teams that are really trying.
Yeah, absolutely. And we know his agent, Scott Boras, did say recently that Alonso would be willing to spend some time at DH, at least sometime at DH next season. All right, let's talk a little bit about Edwin Diaz. We just talked about him a second ago, guys, but we know that he won reliever of the year. The season that he put together was phenomenal, but we are hearing rumors of him possibly not being a Met next season. KP, what do you think about that? What's your reaction?
Yeah, I mean, unlike Pete, I mean, Edwin Diaz, I could see, wearing a different uniform much easier than a guy like Pete Alonso. And I think that plays into his favor. And, elite relief pitching doesn't grow on trees. So, yeah, I mean, this is typical, off-season free agent baseball, 50-50. Of course it is. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. But I think Edwin Diaz obviously had an unbelievable year, reliever of the year, opted out of a deal where he left some money on the table. But I think he ends up with a really big deal, and I don't think it's in New York.
I think there's nobody that the Mets need more. I think they lost so many games because that bullpen got so ravaged. The fact that Edwin Diaz had 92 strikeouts in 66 innings and only 28 saves shows that this team was either boom or bust, and they never really got the game to him. Like you can't be bringing in an elite closer that you're paying, possibly he'll get $100 million in a game where you're winning by 5 runs or you're winning by the value there is to keep the game close. They need a bullpen. They need to build a bullpen, and you can't build a bullpen with 5 pieces and none of them closers. I feel like the Mets, based on what they did last year and based on the fact that David Stearns doesn't like to give starting pitching money out there, they need an anchor in that bullpen because you need somebody picking up the innings that you're not willing to pay starters. So I would disagree with KP. They need Edwin or one of the other elite closers that's out there.
Yeah, well, that also kind of begs the question about what we saw from Bob Nightengale recently. He said the Mets are expected to land at least one high-end starter. And we know that David Stearns, he came out and he said, listen, I don't know how many true number one starters are actually available right now. I don't know how many are going to be traded. But he said, you would always like to find that top of the rotation guy. So that's got to be a priority for them right now, KP, right?
Yeah, they definitely need to find one. I think they did a decent job last year of signing starting pitching, but they didn't go find front end guys. I think they overpaid for some certain guys that were coming off some injuries and they were hoping that they had bounce back years. They have a really good piece in David Peterson there, but he is not a number one. He's working his way up to, potentially being that. But I think they need a frontline end starter, much to like Kratz said. They need innings. They need innings because that bullpen got eaten alive because their starters weren't going deep in games.
Yep, I agree. And maybe the front end number one, isn't what they need. They need somebody who they're not afraid to let them pitch. They need to be, and I don't think it's Mendy. Mendy, he can't make chicken salad out of chicken, what? Guys couldn't go deep into the games. And if you're expecting the young guys that they called up late in the season to be those guys, I don't think those are the guys. You need somebody that's not afraid to eat innings. So who on the market can eat innings? And to me, that's the route you go. And maybe they become your number one. Maybe they aren't number ones right now, but because of their ability to go deeper into games and the trust that you can have for them, that is where the value's at.
All right, we'd love to hear that. Coming up next, we are going to talk with one of my absolute favorite guys in the game. That would be Pete Fairbanks. Of course, we know what happened with he and the Rays. He will no longer be with Tampa. He's going to join us after the break. All right, guys, we just talked about some rumors. Let's talk about more rumors from Bob Nightengale at the GM meetings. We saw that the Brewers reiterated that they have no intention of trading ace Freddie Peralta. I know that Ken Rosenthal talked about that. He said they seem pretty adamant too. What do we think? I mean, that says they will listen. They say they will listen, but he's only owed $8 million in the final year of his contract. So, guys, what do we think? KP, you go.
Yeah, I think those two things contradict each other. I think someone saying, I'm absolutely not going to do something, but I'm also going to listen. I think that's just baseball free agency in a nutshell. But I mean, Freddie Peralta would be a great fit in New York. We talked about someone that's, not afraid to take the ball, go deep into games, durable. He seems like a great fit for the Mets, but he's also a great fit in Milwaukee. He's been there. He's their guy. He worked his way up to being that number one. He sat behind Burns and Woodruff for a long time, and they had an unbelievable rotation. It's now his rotation, but he's a guy you could definitely see moved. You could see a guy being stayed. I think there's some other guys out there maybe more likely because Milwaukee does a good job of kind of valuing their players and the people that they have in their clubhouse. And Freddie Peralta fits, all the things that Milwaukee Brewers are about.
I don't care what people say. Actions speak louder than words. And the actions are that the Brewers will get rid of you at this point. As much as I love Matt Arnold and the Brewers organization, it's their MO. It's what they do. They don't ever have a rebuild. They want to keep going. Freddie Peralta will give you an absolute cachet of arms and current big leaguers. I see him as a Red Sox next year, to be flat honest with you.
Oh, boy. Okay. There's a take. We like that. All right, real quick. Sanji Alcantara of the Marlins. What do we think? We know that their owner, Bruce Sherman, has told a lot of people that he plans to have him on the roster at the start of 2026, but will he be, KP?
Where will he be? Not there. I mean, I think if he would have pitched a little bit better, he would have got traded at the deadline, but coming back from the TJ, it took him a little bit longer and not, unexpected. Guys that come back from TJ, everyone kind of goes at their own pace. But the way he pitched down the stretch was the Sandy Alcantara of old, and I don't expect him to be in Miami. He would be a great fit also in New York, Boston. I think those two teams, because obviously they're teams that could use some guys, and they also have some young starting controlling pitching, which both of those teams, value very much.
Welcome back to Foul Territory. We are joined now by one of my favorite people that I have ever covered in my baseball career. That would be the one and only Pete Fairbanks. Pete, hello. How you doing?
Hi, guys. Pretty good. Pretty good, I got to say.
Pretty good. Okay. All right. Well, then let's get
I've
right
inspired Kratzy to wet his whistle a little bit there.
I thought we were all hydrating.
I
With
stay
our
hydrated,
oversized
especially
Yetis.
in these. Especially in these, when I'm in the quad split screen, I try and stay as hydrated as possible.
Love that. Love that for you.
Me too,
Love that for
with
you.
the best mugs possible as well.
That's a good mug. That is a good mug.
If you don't know, this is
Very
Pete
good
Fairbanks' mug. Strikeouts for Ellis. You should go get one. It's a fantastic mug. It really holds a lot of coffee, and I need a lot of caffeine when I'm dealing with guys like Erik Kratz. All right, Pete, let's get right to it. As we know, your option was declined with the Rays last week. You had been with the Rays since 2019, done so many wonderful things with that organization, for that organization. You and your wife, Lydia, have loved your time there. What was your initial reaction? Hi, hello, tell her to come on in.
Lottie, you want to say hi? Lottie. All right, see ya.
This is her moment.
No, if there's one person to steal a moment, it's Lottie. She did, I think it was with Lauren Shahadi, I think, in 22, in which she decided she didn't want to nap and did a full interview on MLB Network sitting on my lap in her sleep sack. She's been known to hijack a camera at whatever junction she sees fit.
She has been. All right, so Pete, give us your reaction. When you realized you were no longer gonna be with the Rays?
Yeah, I mean it's bittersweet, right? In my case, this has been my 7th year down here. So yeah, just to walk away from that obviously is not something that I think I've fully comprehended yet. But I mean, on the other hand, getting to experience free agency and getting to see where that road takes me is something I'm definitely excited for.
Yeah, I know as a free agent, you can never really, close the opportunity of maybe going back to the Rays. You need to negotiate with all 30 teams, but there's got to be a little part of you, got to be a little bit excited. I imagine last year was a little bit difficult playing in a minor league stadium all year.
Yeah, it was something. It was there's a reason that teams spend March down here and not the rest of the year. Um, yeah, it was an interesting experience. I'll be excited, whether it's revisiting the Trop or playing in whatever ballpark it'll be. It'll be nice to get back to business.
I assume you haven't read comments or anything, but I want your personal opinion going into free agency here and seeing what other guys get. Do you feel like $11 million was too much for one, what you've done, and for an elite closer in the game?
Oh, you guys are going to put me really on the spot here with I think is it too much? That depends on your person. Do I think it was too much? We'll see. We'll see how the market shapes up. But it's I think on the other side of it, right? That's if you look at just Tampa's payroll, right? That's a lot to commit to a bullpen guy when you have Brandon's making what 11.5 this year. Yanni's making something similar. So I kind of had a feeling that it would end up somewhere along these lines, but we'll kind of see what happens from here on out.
All right, Pete. So it's your first time as a free agent, your first time going through free agency. First of all, I know it hasn't been long, but describe it for me, I guess, so far, your thought process and how locked in you're going to be. You're taking a deep breath there. I see that.
My thought process is see who calls. That's kind of the name of the game. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely been a different experience. I've had to adjust my daily life in St. Pete since I'm not overworking out at Al Lane like I was before. Had to make myself a free agent in the local gym space as well. But yeah, I mean, I'm on the phone with Aaron a decent bit. Obviously, the GM meetings just wrapped up out in Vegas, so we were talking a bit through that, and I see a lot of contact with him as we move forward.
Are you wearing a Magic School Bus t-shirt? I'm sorry. That's just, I just
Yeah,
got
that's
to
right.
ask about
That's
that real
right.
quick.
What about it? This is the OG too, not the remake.
Oh, no,
This is
no.
the
I
OG
see
Miss
it's the
Frizzle,
OG.
not her niece.
I see it's the OG. Why did you choose that t-shirt? I have to know.
This is a great shirt.
What team? I need to know.
You don't like Magic School Bus?
I am a
Maybe
huge
I mean,
School Bus fan.
as a my kids just got back. They just got back into it over like the last month or so. So yeah, I got all sorts of educational stuff. And my mom was a teacher. It's been ingrained in me.
All right.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Between Star Wars Legos, we never know what's coming. Eric?
I knew there'd be some Legos in the Jango Fett helmet back there is
Yeah, that's right back there.
ridiculous. But that was
and I are in the
well
middle of
placed.
building one.
Well placed by you, just like Tricia's
Yeah.
all her
I
Indiana
had to-
gear, which she
Yeah,
never
I
had
had to
up
stick it back
before
there.
until Indiana football
It's-
started doing well. Now all of a sudden she's like, "Oh, Indiana! I'm a big Indiana fan."
4.
I stuck
5
this here
banners.
to I put it here to hide the mess that follows the rest of it. So
Okay.
some might call it strategic. I say it's strategic for a different reason, not necessarily product placement for my hobbies.
What does an off season day look like for you? I know you're not at Al Lang anymore, which is so funny. Most people don't even know what Al Lang is, but you have to be
Where
old
they
school.
play soccer.
It is a great place to work out. What does it look like for you? I mean, are you going to PF? Are you going to Planet Fitness or LA Fitness and like throwing up some 55s on the bench? What does an off season look like for you to get yourself ready at this point? I assume you're not throwing yet. I mean, that would be
Throwing a little bit.
Okay.
Not nothing that's like super intensive. Just kind of taking the arm for a walk a few days a week. So I mean, first you got to get the kids' lunches right. You got to get them to school. Today I went and watched Flag, in which they say the Pledge of Allegiance and announce big news from the week for my son's school. And after that, I snagged a coffee, drove over to Tampa, worked out and through with Yarbs. Got back. Lottie came back from school, crashed the interview. But yeah, that's pretty much. I gotta be back by like 2:50 so I can go hop in the drop off line. But it's it's the same as everybody else's off season. It just revolves around drop off and pickup a little bit more.
Okay, well, drop off is fine. You do your drop off on your own. Are you a front of the line pickup guy? Because most people would say you don't have a job, and I never had a job, and I would get there like maybe 10 minutes early. There's 13 people already in the pickup line. Like, are you a front of the line? Have you ever been front of the line guy?
So ours is not like a drive-through pickup. We actually have to get out and walk up to the school. And thankfully I live close, so I try and sneak out a few minutes prior to pickup time. That way I'm not fighting with anybody. I can back the car in and get nice and comfy and make sure it's easy to pull out.
Pete, can I ask you a question that has nothing to do with the drive-through line at school? But I want to ask you because you were with the Rays for so long, and we know that team had some amazing accomplishments when you were with them, right? I want to know what your favorite moment was when you were with the Rays. There's a lot of moments that Rays guys always bring up to me. They always talk about Mike Brasso hitting that home run off of Aroldis Chapman against the Yankees in the CS. That was a big moment. But what was your favorite moment with the Rays and your time there?
Are we talking like team? Are we talking personal? What's do you have a criteria for this when you're just?
No, give me team and then give me personal.
Personal was probably either a save on our first Ellis night that we did at the ballpark or clinching the ALCS in 20. Team moment would probably be going back-to-back AL East in 21. That was pretty fun.
2021, and that's a really, really good one. You want to talk about that save moment, though, that you had for the Ellis night at the ballpark? Because we had that game on Roku, and I interviewed you afterwards when you got that save because it was on the night that you were honoring Ellis, your daughter, and your foundation.
Yeah, that was a good one. Unfortunately, I'm pretty sure it was played on Roku at just as early as you are legally allowed to play a game. So I remember that a lot. I think I picked somebody off. I think I picked somebody off and struck somebody out with a changeup, which are two, rare occurrences for me. But yeah, I mean, for us to have that group down the Turner Syndrome Foundation and for it to play out the way it did, I thought was pretty special, especially for the family and everything that we've dealt with, and then how we've been able to make light of it over the last 2 years.
All right, I need you to weigh in on the debate that just went down last night. AL MVP, Cal versus Judge. I get it. You're not throwing. No way is Pete throwing any shade to whoever he says should have won it. But who do you think should have won?
Hide behind my water bottle for a second. Who do I think should have won it? I mean, I don't think that there was a wrong choice, right? I think it depends on how much you weight having to squat behind the dish and catch 150 pitches a night, and then still be able to put the at bats together. So yeah, I mean, I don't think you could be faulted for voting anyway. I think that Cal had an unbelievable season, and Judge is still probably the best offensive talent in the game. So I'm gonna.
No.
I'll flip a coin. Either way, if you want me, I'll find a. I don't know if I got a coin over here or not.
Flip a Lego.
I actually do. I don't know how this is going to work. I have one of the 101 Dalmatian name tags over here. I'll flip that for you.
Choose.
All right. Tails, Judge.
Oh my goodness.
You're such an AL East apologist.
I'm a homer.
You're like,
yeah.
Yep, you're a homer.
Not anymore. Not anymore. I'm homeless now. I can't be an AL East homer now that I'm not there.
If you live down in Tampa now. You live down in Tampa.
Pete. Yep.
St. Pete.
Does this moment when you get, I call it fired. You got fired. Like they don't want you anymore. So you're either fired, cut, or sent down to the JV team. does this make you hesitate living in the city that you play in the sense of like spending your off season? I get it. There's way worse places than spending an off season in Tampa. Like, I enjoy that area. But people have always asked me, like, wow, you moved to 14 different organizations. Wow, what city was your favorite one to live in? I was like, most of them I lived in a Residence Inn. But guys with long-term contracts, does this make you hesitate? Like, oh man, like teams can just do this. We might just want to stay in one city, and it's not going to be the city that I play in.
Well, what if there's a fourth option? I got bought out technically. So does that mean I was fired, or does that mean I was just paid a severance package and still fired?
I didn't know that. No. They fired you. They fired you, but
fired with a severance package.
Yes, you got a severance package.
Mm-hmm. A $1 million severance package.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's not necessarily like having to pack up and move. Like, I would live in St. Pete regardless of if I played here or not, right? Like, it's an awesome spot. We love it. Low key, great school, all the stuff that I'm looking for. The bigger decision right for now is, I got kids that are school age. How do we figure out what to do? Whether, we go full time in the city, do we move back in our case, probably to St. Louis and, work around the school year. So, that's going to be the questions that we answer, not necessarily, I could get moved. Well, that'd be fine. Right. If it's just, you and a wife, or just you, I'd spend a whole year in wherever. It just kind of depends on, for me, more of we got to get the family situation squared away before anything else.
This is perfect because everyone who's never been through free agency, they make it seem like it's just so nice. It's so easy. Like, yeah, you're going to make some money, but all these tough decisions that you have to go through as a family, as a dad, it's a nightmare. And my friendly advice for you is someone who went through free agency like 4 or 5 times, because to Kratz's point, I always got fired at the end of the year. Just have a conversation with your wife. You're going to be a little bit annoying for a while. You're going to be on your phone a lot. You're going to be checking your phone. My advice to you is maybe get your agent like its own ringtone. So when he calls, it's him. Everything else is kind of, you get to it if you get to it. That was kind of my big thing, is I had his own ringtone. So I knew if he was calling, I'd pick it up. But it was a nightmare, man. And obviously you're a much better player than I was, and it's going to serve you a lot better. But have that conversation with your wife, because you're going to spend a lot of time on your phone.
Yeah. Do you have any ringtone suggestions? Should it be like the most annoying, like stock Apple one? Or okay.
No.
Yeah. Right, I'll have to go through after this.
When you're in another room, it's very obvious who's calling.
Like the sirens going off.
Yeah.
No, you gotta have money.
Yeah, that one works too.
Just a quotes from Jerry Maguire as soon as it comes on.
I got one more question for you too, and it's not to throw shades at the Rays, because obviously you had a ton of success there, and we would never close the book on going back to the Rays. But seeing someone like a former teammate like Blake Snell, leave Tampa, go some other places, but land in a place like LA and finally win a World Series, it's got to make you smile a little bit, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm super excited for Blake and Glass, and I mean, there's a lot of Ray ties over there. Especially shout out to my man, not as maybe not as mainstream as Blake, but Ben Rortvedt getting himself a ring. So yeah, obviously, you're super. Anytime that any of your friends, see that kind of success, you're very excited for them. Regardless of where it is. I think that, and as I told my agent, my dad, my mom, anybody that would listen, I was like, I'm not really watching the World Series, but I'm gonna watch when those two are playing.
We love that. So much support for your former teammates. Before we go, one fun question for you, Pete. What's your favorite t-shirt in your closet? Because you have so many. I've literally seen you wear about every single type of Pokemon, Star Wars, Ted Lasso, Magic School Bus. You have to. You have to give me a favorite.
My favorite? Yeah, we gotta go.
Gotta go.
This is perfect. This is the last question. Lid has a doctor's appointment that we got to get to.
Yes.
I will say the favorite one in my closet. I got a Marvel X-Men collab from a few years ago. That's like a Cyclops trading card. That's probably number one.
Oh my goodness, that's fantastic. Pete Fairbanks, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate the time. Say hi to Lydia and the kids for us. Next time, bring the kids with you. We love them on the show.
Yeah, we'll get Lottie on here next time for sure. We can't have Isaac because he is way too coherent and talks a lot.
I love it. I love it. Pete, thank you. We appreciate
Thanks,
it.
guys.
We will be right back here on Foul Territory with the Reds off-season to-do list.
Dan Hayes.
All right, we love to hear from Pete Fairbanks. And we're going to talk a little bit about what you're looking at on the screen right now. Bryon Buxton. We know that he appeared on 14 of 30 ballots. He finished 2 points shy of 10th place in the AL MVP vote. He got 3 7th place votes. And so we need to talk about that a little bit. We know, what he's been through. We've talked about the potential that he could have if he could stay healthy for a full season. But guys, what's your kind of reaction to that, finishing 11th in the AL MVP votes and missing narrowly a $3 million bonus in his contract if he finished in the top 10?
Well, I mean, much like Pete, he probably would have had some spare coins sitting around if he would have got that $3 million. But if I was him, I would have been talking to the writers. I would have been talking to anyone who has a vote and been like, you know what? It doesn't bother you to give me a 6th place vote or 7th place. No one's even looking that far down the ballot. If I knew I had $3 million to finish 10th place, I would have been cheating the system a little bit. But I think if he stays healthy, he's going to have no problem reaching that $3 million, in years to come. He just needs to stay on the field because he's one of the best players when healthy.
Maybe the poll ads were cheating the system a little bit, and every time a team came in and a writer came in, be like, "Hey, I heard you got the MVP vote this year. I really don't think Buxton's really been kind of a problem. All of a sudden, oh wow, we saved $3 million because that team wants to save some money. $3 million. Bryon Buxton's made a lot of money. $3 million is a lot of money. I don't care who you are.
Would you campaign for them to vote for you, Eric, if you were in that situation with the writer?
You can't. KP says that, but you can't. You have to be who you are. You're calling people. Yeah. You're calling. Last September, you see Buxton over here. He's like,
I've never seen a player do that.
Not yet. Not when you got $3 million on the line. I mean, 10th place. And the crazy part is he got 11th place. He missed it by 2 points. 2 points.
What's that? The difference between like a 7th place vote and a 6th place vote? Potentially, is that 2 points? I don't know exactly how it works.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not by much. You're not asking someone to say, "Hey, vote for me first," but like, "Hey, down that ballot a little bit. Once you get into those later numbers, just put my name on there."
Dan Hayes, give me a first place. That's it. One first place.
Oh my goodness. All right, we are going to talk a little bit of Cincinnati Reds right now and their offseason, a little bit about their to-do list. And guys, I'm going to pose the first question to you about Ace Hunter Green. He has 3 years and $42 million left on his contract. There have been rumors that the Reds, if I have to say this phrase one more time today, I'm going to die, but have listened, but don't have any intention of trading Hunter Green. Eric, what's your reaction to that and thoughts?
To your visceral hate for listening?
Oh, let's do both. My visceral hate.
Tricia, have you ever told somebody, "I wish you were a better listener"? Maybe that's a good thing that somebody says, "You know what? We are listening." You know why they're listening? Because they're teams that don't want to spend money and they have the most capital ever. It's like they have this big coupon that just is sitting there ooh, I'm going to cash this in for something. Well, you know what? They don't need to. Maybe the Reds should have looked at themselves and been like, ooh, you know what? We didn't really build the entire roster, and our hitters weren't quite who we thought they were going to be. We have an ace at a number one. He's not an ace. A number one at the top of our rotation. that, you know what? It's okay to say we're going to listen, but it's also okay to not go anywhere because he's got 3 more years on his deal and he is below market value. No, they're not going to trade him because I think it's still in this winning window.
All right, I've heard we have a guest ready for us to talk a little Reds.
He knows more. He knows more. He doesn't know how to spell.
There he
Hat's
is.
upside down.
I don't know how to spell. I'm still trying to learn. And I think
Okay.
it's the wrong sport too. So
Maybe.
Maybe. We welcome in Danny Graves, who knows a lot more than we do about the Reds. So, Danny, we need to know, what are your top 3 to-do lists, things on your to-do list for the Reds this offseason?
I'll explain the hat real quick for you, Kratzy. So it's hockey weekend. I have to travel for travel hockey for my 10-year-old son. As soon as I get off this, I'm going to pick him up from school, and we're going to Dallas. Big tournament this weekend. So that's the reason I have the hockey attire. So,
Godspeed. Godspeed.
Supportive dad and coming on with us. We love it.
Yeah.
I hope you get no traffic. No traffic.
That's driving through Austin is awful. So it'll take me like 17 hours. But here's the thing. What I got for the Reds, what I wish the Reds could do, I really think they need to solidify their bullpen. Emilio Pagan was great for them last year at the back end. 32 saves, 1 of 8 in all of Major League Baseball that had 30-plus saves. It's hard to find that guy at the back end that could shut down games for you. He is a free agent. Whether they'll try to sign him back, I'm not sure. I know he's going to be demanding a lot more money than probably the Reds want to pay for a closer. So they need to go out and find somebody. Tony Santillan did a great job. 80 games last year, a sub-3 ERA. Could he close? Possibly. But I do feel like they need some kind of veteran leadership in the bullpen. Also, a power bat. We need some pop at Great American Small Park, guys. 22 home runs led the team last year, and Ellie De La Cruz, I believe, is 22. That's not enough for that kind of ballpark. You need guys that can drive the ball out of the ballpark. You know that one swing in the bat can change the game. And also, I think they need to solidify the outfield. TJ Friedel's been really good. Noelvi Marte has been awesome, the transition from third base to right field, but they need somebody else. They need a guy like maybe Kevin Pillar. I don't know if he's going to come out of retirement, but you need a guy that can run him down and catch the ball and know where to throw it every single time. I'm not trying to talk you into anything, Kevin. I'm just saying.
No, when I was reading this list, I'm like, power bat and outfield. It sounds like me. If 22 homers, is like the barometer of power, I think I got 22 left. Although I'm sitting here stealing right now, so
right-handed power bat, I would prefer. And there you are.
Okay.
I mean, I think KP could hit dingers, although something happened with the humidor and in Great American Small Park. I don't know. That's another discussion. We're going to stick to your to-do list, and I'm going to hit the first topic, the bullpen.
Okay. Yep.
I think every team is going to have that as on their to-do list, add to the bullpen. Everybody wants to do that. Do you feel like it's an easier job because of the fact what Derek Johnson has done with this starting rotation? What Terry Francona feels comfortable letting this starting rotation go deeper? Because some teams, we just talked about the Mets, those dudes are out of there in the 4th inning. Like, you got to build an entire new bullpen because you killed them all this year. Do you feel like it's an easier job? And I know it's a small market, so they're not going to spend a ton of money, but is it easier to find guys that can fill in because you don't have to have such a deep bullpen?
So I don't know if it's easier, Kratzy. I do think they're going to have more options because they have starters that can go deeper, and they're younger guys that still have a lot of bullets left in the tank. So I do feel like they want to go out and look for somebody like last year. They brought in Pagan. I don't think they were expecting him to be their guy that has 30-plus saves, but you bring in a veteran guy who has a little bit of experience, and then you see what happens. Maybe let Santillan start it the season as closer and then have somebody to back him up just in case. But it does make a big difference, I think, if your starter goes deeper. The way that the game is nowadays when starters do go 4 2/3. Why is it 4 2/3? I have no idea. But they go 4 2/3, then they got to try to mix and match the rest of the game. Well, you kind of need that bullpen, especially come playoff time, right? So if you're burning them out, you're toast. So hopefully they can find somebody that's not going to cost them too much money, where they can go out and have a bullpen to compete.
All right, my question, since I'm no longer available to fill the needs of the Cincinnati Reds, give me the dream scenario of that power bat that you're thinking of. Give me who you think they end up with. Because I think who they kind of dream of getting and who they probably end up with are probably two different people. And do you think they have a little bit of hesitancy because the last two kind of big deals they gave to power bats didn't work out?
So I think my dream deal would Pete Alonso would be that guy. That's not going to happen. I think that's everybody's dream. He would be a perfect fit for that ballpark, but obviously just cannot afford to have him. I do like Eugenio Suarez. Reunite. I know they were talking about reuniting with him at the trade deadline last year, but they couldn't get a deal done. I don't know how much he's going to be worth. They're saying like possibly 3 years, $60 million. I don't know if the Reds are going to want to do that for a guy that's 35 years old. Why not go out on a limb and get somebody like Paul Goldschmidt? But, I know he didn't have a ton of homers last year. He only hit 10, I believe. But the guy can hit the ball out of the ballpark, and his career numbers at Great American are pretty good. I think it's 280 plus with 20 homers and 60-something games. So he's familiar with the place. It's a veteran guy who can just flat out hit still. So I think there's options there. But, again, you got Sal Stewart that's going to be plugged into the lineup. You have at third base Brian Hayes, who's going to be plugged in. So where do you put that power bat? I have no idea. Your guess is as good as mine. I don't think they ever listen to me, Kevin, anyway. But why don't they go out and try to get Pete or Suarez?
All right, Danny, I got a way that you can cross off two pieces on your to-do list. Anytime I have a to-do list, sometimes I write something down that I just did and I cross it off just to make me feel like I accomplished a lot. So I'm going to give you your power bat and your outfit one, and it's not going to cost you what free agent market costs. The outfield needs that guy, and I think this team needs an alpha. Do the Reds have enough to go and trade for Bryon Buxton to solidify that outfield because of the fact that they're not going to pay? It's under market value, or are the Reds not built as an organization that you know better than I do to do something like that?
Ooh, man, you gave me chills when you said that. I don't know if you saw my reaction. That's pretty intense. That would be pretty amazing. I agree with you there. They do need an alpha. And Buxton, oh my gosh, he would fit perfectly. But what would they have to give up? I heard you right before I came on that talks about Hunter Green. I know that there were kind of talks about that previously through the media. Will they do it because he's under market value right now? They're getting him for pretty cheap. I don't know if they would, but if it was a chance to get Bryon Buxton, maybe they would. I don't know. I like that though. Maybe I'll send that to some of the upper people, see if they, as an anonymous caller or something, see if they can throw that out there. I love that.
Get it done.
And then you're getting credit for it.
Okay. I don't need credit for it. I'm fine. I don't want anybody calling me.
You mentioned Hunter Green. We've talked about the Reds rotation a little bit. It's one of the deepest in baseball, but the Reds have said, that they have listened, but don't have any intention of trading Hunter Green, who has 3 years and $42 million left on his contract. I guess, what are you hearing from that front? Or what do you think happened?
Yeah. I think honestly, it was just something that was thrown out there to see if it would stick. And I'm sure they're listening to anything because at this point, there's really nobody on this team that you would say is untouchable. If there's the right deal and the right players offered for somebody and it's a no-brainer, I think you take it. But I also think, Trish, you've been in this game long enough too. Like, things get thrown out there like randomly, and do they really mean anything? Is there any like headway behind it? No, probably not. I don't think Nick Krall had any intention going into this offseason talking about Hunter Green trades because of the fact that he's making so little amount of money compared to other number one starters. So I think it's just something that was thrown out there, and they kind of talked about it a little bit at the GM meetings, and I think that's it. Unless the Twins say, here's Bryon Buxton and so for Hunter Green and so.
So let's talk a little bit about the man in charge, Terry Francona, and just the confidence in him to manage this team and give it the level of consistency that they want and see those regular postseason berths if they just add a few more pieces to that roster. Danny, is that kind of what we're feeling from the Reds camp a little bit?
Yes, I do. And I don't feel like they're going to go out and spend a ton of money, because when was the last time they ever did? Probably never. So I think that they're going to go out and Tito's going to try to convince them what pieces they need to get over the hump. Tito didn't come here just to help rebuild or just to get to a one-game playoff or a wild card playoff. Tito came to Cincinnati to win. He came out of retirement to win. So I think he's going to have a lot of say in who they go after and who they want to sign. And hopefully the owners there and Nick Krall decides, hey, this is what we need. Let's give it a run and see what we can do, because the city of Cincinnati is begging for a winner.
Yeah, to follow up on that, when they hired Tito to come out of retirement to do this, obviously it was to win. Was this a lot quicker than they kind of saw it happening? Would you consider this year a success, them getting the playoffs, even though they lost, in the first round of the Dodgers? But was this a little bit quicker than most people kind of anticipated, Tito taking over and being able to lead his team to the playoffs?
I see. Anytime you have a Tito Francona running your team, you automatically think he's going to get to the playoffs. Was it a little bit quick? I think if you look at the roster that the Reds have had the last couple of years with David Bell, they've had the pieces, but they just couldn't figure out how to get over that hump. They couldn't figure out how to just work through the dog days of September. I think with Tito, he brings that little extra confidence, and that where guys feel like they're really playing better than what they should. So I don't think they were surprised. I don't necessarily think I was surprised, because Tito, whatever Tito does is not a shock to me. The guy's a winner.
All right. Last question. You watched this team the whole year. Did the Reds make the playoffs, or did the Mets lose it?
B. Yeah. I think the Mets kind of like gave it away. They were so good for most of the year, and then they just buckled under the pressure. The Reds, I think if you watched them a lot, you saw that they were at times really good, and then at times they were like, oh my gosh, this team's terrible. And then again, oh my gosh, they're really good. And then, wait, what is this team's identity? So I think they were trying to get steady towards the end of the year, and they played well the last couple of weeks, obviously, to put that pressure on the Mets. But I do, at the end of the day, think that the Mets kind of choked.
I would have to agree with that take, Danny. I think that is correct take there. Danny,
thank you. I was hoping for somebody to agree. Thanks, Trish.
I do. I very much agree with that take. And I got a soft spot for the Reds in my heart, because I grew up in Southern Indiana, so I grew up watching them. But I agree with that take. The Mets lost that chance. Yeah. All right, Danny, thank you so much. And don't forget to catch Riverfront Territory with Danny on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. We will be right back on Foul Territory with Shake It Up. All right, let's talk about, Twitter trolls, right? There's a lot of them out there, but let's take a look at this one. There were a lot of reactions on Twitter to Derek's NL MVP ballot this year, right? He put Perdomo at third place, Soto getting his second place votes, and there was a lot of reaction to this ballot here, guys. And honestly, rightfully so. Some saying it was just clickbait that he would even do this or tweet this. What do you guys think? Erik?
He's showing off some good handwriting. That's for sure.
Tremendous.
Yeah. All caps. You go all caps when you write?
No chance.
No, I don't. Unless you like are signing something to someone, like if you have to sign a jersey or bat, it's just more legible to write in all caps and you write slower. But no, I would never write like my to-do list or like a grocery list in all caps.
That's
Are you a capsman?
I'm half cursive, half print, you guys. I'm not even joking with you.
That's like
bizarre.
weird. That's a weird hybrid. But
It's
that's not
so
weird.
bizarre.
It's not weird that Derek did that. I love that he wrote that out. I love that he had a outside the box way of looking at it. I love the way that he was able to then go and connect with the fans. Isn't that why we have Twitter and Instagram? So that we connect? And Derek was not afraid of connecting. Some people call it clickbait. He's a writer. Like he put out his guess of who he thought, his opinion. And you know what? Good for him for standing behind it. I did think Perdomo should have been higher up on some of the lists than what he wasn't a DH. I know Schwarber got second place, but like this man played shortstop for a team that was scratching and clawing all year, and he had an incredible year. Look it up.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think, like you said, the whole idea of social media was to connect with people. It's not to belittle, talk down to people, troll people. The fact that he wanted to go out there and put his votes out there and then engage with the fans and maybe explain why he did what he did. But at the end of the day, these writers get to choose who they want to vote for. Some make them public, some don't. This is his opinion of who he thought were the most valuable players. We're not saying the best players, the most valuable. And he felt like that position at shortstop is very valuable to the Arizona Diamondbacks.
All right, it is time for Shake It Up. We're talking a little bit of Tarik Skubal. And guys, we know we've talked about him not only all season long, but a lot today for good reason. And from Bob Nightengale, he says that the Tigers will listen to offers for two-time Cy Young winner Tarik Skubal. But as we have talked about, we talked about it with Ken. It just that doesn't seem likely that they would ever take an offer, right? I think Bob phrased it: you have to sacrifice your firstborn star players and best prospects, or don't call it all. KP, what do we think?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the deserving package of getting a guy like Tarik Skubal. You know, he automatically makes your team that much better. He's a back-to-back Cy Young Award winner. He's a guy that you want starting playoff games. You know, in a perfect world, I'd love to see him just stay in Detroit. I wish they could figure out a way to sign him a deal, but knowing who his agent is, he's going to go to the end and, you know, test the free agent market, which he deserves to do. But I love a guy like Tarik Skubal that, you know, is brought up with an organization, finds his way, rewards the organization with being the player that he thought he could be and the organization thought he could be. You know, it'd be great. It would be a great story if he could stay there, but probably very unlikely he stays there. You know, I think their run of success has, you know, the emotional component to it where the fans want them to keep him. And, you know, the front office has a tough decision to make because they've been successful the last 2 years, you know, mostly because he's been, you know, their opening day starter and starting postseason games for him. But, you know, you think back to an organization like the Angels that didn't trade Shohei and how behind they are as an organization. So they have a tough decision to make.
All right. Well, Bob may not think that highly of his firstborn because I'm pretty sure this firstborn is not winning you a playoff series. Tarik Skubal can win you a playoff series. So to me, the organizations that don't push as hard as they possibly could to get Skubal, what's the worst that comes of it? Like you told your your number one prospect in your organization, oh, sorry, you know, I know we still like you, even though we look to trade you for Tarik Skubal. It's okay. There's no feelings hurt. Tarik Skubal has put the Tigers on his back. He's not going to go to another organization and just start put the list out there. Orioles, Red Sox, Philly, like whatever the organization is that says they want to be all in, you should be all in for Tarik Skubal because he will put your organization on their back. And I don't care if you already have a number one. I don't care if it's a team like the Phillies who already has 3 legit playoff starters. I don't care what the cost is because right now, if you trade for him in the offseason, you still get a qualifying offer for him when you let him walk. But the teams that could go for him, unless it's the Orioles, have an opportunity to pay him because you're going to want to pay him when he's in free agency because he is a generational ace that you get his prime for 1 year. And I would say the value is never higher. And I also would say the Tigers, if they do listen and do make this trade, they're not out of it. They're not completely out of it. Some would say, well, there'll be a big step back. I get it. But you can get franchise-changing players when you already have a good young core on the team.
Well, I think that also begs the question, and KP, I'll pose this to you. Would offers get worse if this drags into the season?
Ooh, probably. I mean, I think this is the maximum you're probably going to get for him. I mean, maybe the trade deadline when teams get a little bit desperate, but an entire year of Tarik Skubal, starting opening day for me, making 30-plus starts, I don't think the value is ever going to be any higher than right now. And to Kratz's point, what the Tigers have built, partially because of Tarik Skubal, but the nice young core that they have, you're going to get a king's ransom for him. And you can legitimately alter your minor league system and even your major league roster with the haul that you're going to get back for Tarik Skubal. So whatever Detroit decides to do, I don't think there's a wrong answer here. My number one choice would be figure out a way to sign him long-term because he's really put the Detroit Tigers back on the map in the baseball world. But it's very unlikely knowing who his agent and obviously as a player that's won back-to-back Cy Youngs and arguably the best pitcher in the sport, you earn that right to be a free agent and go out there and test the free agent market. But a lot of it has to do with the player. Does Tarik Skubal love being a Detroit Tiger? Does he love living in Detroit? Those are factors that you'll just really never know.
And obviously this will never happen. And I'm just saying this because of how I would think as a general manager, as even an owner to be allowed to push this through. Think about a team, an organization that drafts so well and has found loopholes in the draft to be able to just get so much talent and amass talent, but has been on the doorstep but never gotten to the chip. What if the Brewers traded for Tarik Skubal? Zero interest in ever re-signing him. I would be fine with that because it would be him and Freddie Peralta. Good luck beating 2 aces, 2 number ones in one playoff season. You're totally pushing all in for this, and you give away 4, possibly 5 prospects from your organization, and it's a 1-year contract. And at the end of the year, you know what you get? You get a qualifying offer, which all these organizations love to have. You make this deal, and you automatically become the favorite in the NL Central and possibly one of the toughest teams to play in the playoffs because of the fact, and I know they got swept out, but it's time to strike because this is your last year of Freddie Peralta too.
All right, good stuff. Once they get that overwhelming offer, which they will, they'll likely have no choice but to trade him. All right, let's move on to the market for you guys, his name really, I struggle with
Munetaka Murakami.
Murakami. It's going to be fascinating. We know he's got that power, but we've also heard a lot of talk about concerns about his contact rates and also his defense at third. But I think it's fair to say that there's going to be a lot of interest in him. There's going to be a lot of chatter in him, and it's going to be really interesting to see how the market shakes out for him. KP, how do you see the market shaking out for him and maybe the most logical fit for him?
Well, I don't know much about him, but I know that he's got a ton of power. I know there's some swing and miss, and you never really know some of these guys that come over from other countries. Do they want to play in these giant markets and do they want to be stars, or do they want to go to some smaller markets and maybe kind of just blend in and hide? I mean, at the end of the day, are they leaving their country to come over and challenge themselves to play in the best league in the world to make money, or they become famous? I mean, these are the questions you have to ask. If he wants to be, famous and play in a big market, obviously you have your LAs, your New Yorks, your Chicagos, San Franciscos. If he wants to play in a smaller market and maybe just, be able to blend in and make his money and then challenge himself and try to grow in the game, there's a lot smaller markets he can go to.
Yeah, I assume there's no way he's coming over to play in St. Louis or Milwaukee or Cincinnati. I feel like if I'm going to another country and I've seen other guys come over and have success, I feel like it's a small list of teams. Obviously, he has a chance to, follow in Ichiro's steps and be a legend in Seattle. He has a chance to. I don't think the Dodgers have been linked to him. I don't think his style or game really. I don't see how they have a place for him in the spot. Taking Max Muncy's spot at third with his below average defense that Murakami brings, can't DH, isn't playing first. So I don't think that fits there. The Yankees fit is intriguing to me because of the fact that everyone's going to say, well, he strikes out a ton. The Yankees love dudes that hit the ball really hard. I talked to a scout that said the fear for him is not that what he's done recently, the excitement of him is what really is intriguing, because in 22, he came out and looked like one of the, if not the best hitter in Japan. And that's with Seiya Suzuki there, who was putting together an all-star, possibly MVP type of first half, and then he fell off. But Murakami's ability to make changes back in 22 was hitting everything up, down, hard, soft. It didn't matter. They're intrigued by that. And this is a scout from a prominent team that would be in the market. And I'm intrigued to see if they buy the possible upside on him, or if teams say, no, we don't want any of this because of the downside that they've seen in the last few years.
Yeah, Kratz, I was going to ask you too. I'm not as familiar with the game in Japan, but I know the knock on him was not being able to hit velocity. But is that because you're not seeing as much velocity in Japan? You're seeing a lot more off speed? Is there, obviously we've seen a lot of Japanese players come over here and make the adjustment. Like I'm just not as familiar with, maybe you're not seeing 95 on the reg in Japan like you are here, even in the minor league. So, I know that's the big knock on him is he can't hit velocity.
100%. I said this on the show the other day, that the same thing, even when I played against Seiya Suzuki, I was like, I don't know, like top of the zone heaters, can't really get to it. I'm trying to think. Jojima couldn't hit a fastball back in the day. Akinori Iwamura, who came over, played with the Pirates and the Rays, wasn't able to hit the fastball. They made adjustments. And the guys, even some of the players from Korea, the guys that can make an adjustment, they have the success. And the scout that I talked to said it wasn't the fact that he couldn't. Like, it looks like his bat speed is there. It looks like he has the ability to make the adjustment. It was the fact that he didn't hit it. And sometimes, KP, you know this, dudes sit on pitches. And if you're constantly getting splitters, you're constantly getting 12-6 curveballs, because the Japanese game is played more north-south than it is east-west. Now, all of a sudden, you're going from starters there that can touch 100 easily to a starter that's throwing more like a AAA speed, like 86, 88. And then you're going one bullpen guy who throws gas, and then a bunch of, it's a large fall off to that velocity over in Japan on a consistent basis. You're still seeing a lot of velocity, but wouldn't you rather hit 75% of the guys that you're going to see who have lower velocity than 25%? That's how you make a career. You just annihilate dudes that don't throw well, and you just try to compete against the best.
Okay, so this is an interesting part of this whole conversation, right? We know that Jim Bowden wrote a little bit about this. He said that the other team that could be a sleeper is the Rockies, because his power would be impactful at that altitude. What do you guys think about that? KP?
Well,
go
that's
first.
what I was kind of teeing up a little bit. I didn't want to give it away because I did read the notes before the show. I knew this was coming. But if you're a player who wants to just come over and maybe hide, it's a perfect place to go. You think about Chris Bryant went there and we never talk about it anymore. So if this player wants to come over, make his money, try to compete in the big leagues and have no one ever really talk about him or care about what he does, Colorado's the place for him. But very unlikely that he would end up in Colorado.
All I want to be is just on screen right now. I get this look from my daughter all the time, and I'll explain it to the podcast. It's the look of tilting your head, the eye roll. Sorry. Jim Bowden is not Jim Bowden. You are a friend of the show. You are a regular on this show. You have incredible insights. I can't wait till he comes on the show. But I would need to hear why Murakami is going there. Is it because he's going to go there on a one-year deal to increase his value? Like, I feel like there has to be a reason why that would happen. And, hey, you know what? Huge ballpark. You know, people think you just hit dingers. The people that have success there are the dudes that make contact. Because as KP will tell you, you got to run around that freaking outfield. Everyone's like, oh, homer, homer, homer. If you strike out in Colorado, man, like, you're leaving a lot of value on the table. So, no, we are a legitimate show. No, Colorado should not get them unless we don't ever want to talk about Murakami again.
Okay, well, he did say it could help minimize his swing and miss issues, right? And that's why he said that. It was part of the reason why he said that, Eric.
You're still going to strike out.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say he's more likely to go to a place that's going to help him fix his problem of swing and miss than go to a place where he can hide his swing and miss.
Yeah.
And Colorado hasn't been a place that's over the last couple of years proven to say we have the department in place, the hitting coaches in place to, you know, take a player and really improve them. So it's very unlikely. And if I can make that face, I would do it. Yeah, they have a football
guy that's running it. So that's good. So maybe Murakami wants some Browns tickets. Who knows? Maybe that's why.
Maybe he's a two-way. Maybe he's also a tight end too, looking for, you know, I don't know.
Listen, I agree. Jim's not here, so I just thought I would stand up a little bit for what he said. All right, coming up next, we got the hot corner. We will be right back.
All right. Thank you, Leo, for bringing this onto the screen for us. But the 2026 World Series odds from BetMGM for next year, 2026, Blue Jays plus, I guess it's a comma, I'm not sure, 1,600, plus 1,600. KP, are you buying this? Or is that number a little too low for you and you don't want to dip into that quite yet? Wait till you see if they re-sign Bo Bichette, see if they bring somebody else back.
No, I think it's safe money. I would take that bet right now. But I think when you're putting out these World Series predictions, odds, I think you're putting a lot of stock in the front office and who they may or may not get, ownership groups. I mean, obviously that's the million or $1 billion questions, right? On paper, the Blue Jays are a great team. Do they have some holes to fill? But I think you're betting on front offices and organizations that you believe are going to go out and fill those holes. But even if they're unable to bring back a Bo Bichette, which is a big hole in their lineup, I think it's a good bet. There's good value in that. I think there's teams probably ahead of them that I would put my money on the Blue Jays over some other teams.
Okay, well let's go to the teams that are above them, that are ahead of them. It's the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Phillies, the Astros, and the Mariners and the Mets. Who of that group are you taking?
Well, who I wouldn't take over the Blue Jays is a better question. I wouldn't take the Mets. I wouldn't take the Mets where they stand right now. They have bigger holes to fill than, in my opinion, what the Blue Jays have. They don't have a starting rotation that I think is World Series caliber. And then there was one, the Astros, I think, have a lot of questions. I think they had a lot of health concerns this year. I think they're going to get a lot of the starting pitching back. They, played an entire year without Yordan Alvarez. So that one's kind of a coin toss to me. And then there was one more team on there. Read me the Yankees. What have the Yankees really proven besides having Aaron Judge? And I know they're going to get Garrett Cole back, which is going to be a big boost, but they have some giant holes to fill too. They're losing Cody Bellinger, Trent Grisham. I guess maybe Max Fried and Garrett Cole at the front of the rotation gives you some confidence, but recent bias is real for me. I mean, the Blue Jays handled them in the playoffs pretty easily. So I'm still taking the bet on the Blue Jays over some of those other teams.
All right, BetMGM players will receive an NBA Cup odds boost token to use the token at a wager made up of NBA Cup bets. Your bet.
I think there's still a bright future for Hayden, and we're excited about that. And there's some other guys you can be really excited about. I think Wisenhunt's a really good pitcher. There's a ton of young guys down there. I think Trevor McDonald at the end of the year was, really impressive. We got to see him the year before, like the last game. He was like a spot. Hey, let's throw 3 innings. And he did amazing. And then this year he came in and I thought he did a great job again. So, there's a lot of really good pieces that we have. Obviously, me and Robbie, and I would love to have Justin back. I thought Justin, back to the kind of the scouting part of things, helped me so much in my career. Not only just the mentality, the scouting part of it, reading different things that I might, not have seen before, and I would love Justin to come back. Like I said, it's not my decision. I don't get to decide these things. I saw the Max thing. I know Tony knows him from a long time ago. So, and I'm sure it would be very similar. Learning as much as I can. And then, I think at the end of the day, you always try to find guys and get better in certain ways. I've seen a lot of comments about trying to get starting pitching and other spots. So, like I said, just show up and try to get better for myself, and then kind of let the other pieces fall as they may.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the Giants here. That was some interesting stuff from Logan Webb. We know that they have a new manager, but we want to talk about that starting rotation. They have talked about how adding some pieces to that is definitely going to be a priority for them, adding that pitching depth. What do you guys think that rotation is going to look like in 2026? Erik, we'll start with you.
I think it's going to be the similar what he was talking about. Some young guys, him and Robbie Ray. That's the reason they got Robbie Ray, another year off of his Tommy John surgery. So I think it's something that they have the backbone, the pieces. Look, the reality is what he was talking about, Justin Verlander. He's not saying, we got to bring Justin Verlander back because he's going to win 15 games for us. No, he knows what kind of impact he made on his career and what kind of impact he made on the other young guys that they were talking about. And I think if they get a Scherzer, that's great. But if this team wants to take that next step, if this team wants to compete in the National League, I think their feel is that they need another big rotation piece. I don't think those guys are the answer. I think those guys are additions. And I think there's a difference between the answer to what you need and an addition. And so to me, I think Buster Posey understands that, but he also understands that in Oracle Park, you can get a lot done. You can mask a lot of things. You don't need the same thing as other teams would need to be successful as a starting pitcher.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think you can mask a lot of things in that ballpark, but I think if we're talking about, and knowing Buster Posey, he wants to win. The reason he took over, the reason he hired the manager he went out and got, is they want to win. And in order for them to compete with a team like the Dodgers within their own division and the Padres, they're going to need to at least get one more really quality starting pitcher. There is value in bringing in a Justin Verlander and a Max Scherzer to help these guys to teach the young guys, to allow Logan Webb, Robbie Ray to continue to grow. But like you said, they are not necessarily the answer you need in the rotation. They need impact. If you could put someone in slotted after Logan Webb, Robbie Ray, a third guy, maybe you have a veteran and a young guy, but someone in that third spot that is going to go out there and win you 15, 16 games a year, they got a chance to compete. But without that, it's an uphill battle facing teams like the Dodgers and Padres and even the Diamondbacks in your own division.
All right, so one of the things that the Giants announced recently was they hired Bruce Bochy for that special assistant role. And, we know Buster Posey has talked a lot about how much he loves that move because of the leadership, the insight, the experience that he's going to provide them. Erik, what do you think about that move?
I think anytime you get a special assistant, I think it's a cool move. I think you have somebody awesome in the organization. Is it making a blip on the Giants' radar? No. I think there's other organizations that could really kind of learn from bringing people back, bringing people that have won back, bring people that know the game back. What that looks like all depends on the guy. Like, a lot of good organizations have a really great trickle-down effect from the top. I don't think the Giants necessarily need this. I think Buster just really enjoys Boch's company, and the organization should have him around as long as Boch wants to be around.
Yeah, it's a way of saying, hey, we're paying you money to be a special assistant, so when our manager calls, you need to pick up. And it's going to be a great resource for him because, it is his first time managing in the major leagues, and he's already been very open. I've heard him on a couple other radio shows, and, he's been embraced in kind of that managerial fraternity very well. But having someone like Bruce Bochy in his corner is not going to hurt.
All right, check out more from Logan Webb on Splash Hit Territory on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Good stuff from Splash Hit Territory today and always, so tune into them. We'll be right back to Slap Hands next.
I think I would expect them to reach out. I don't know if it'll be, serious, but maybe to check in and, kind of gauge the waters, so to speak. And, I had a good talk with Chaim after I was traded, and, it was really encouraging on possibly maybe, coming back there. And, obviously things changed. That was 3 months ago, but, I really enjoyed my time getting to know Chaim a little bit and think that the Cardinals' future is in really good hands with him.
Okay, well, that was a ringing endorsement from Ryan for Chaim Bloom, but I know he says that he expects the Cardinals to reach out to him this winter. KP, what do you think? Do you think he should be expecting a call from them? Do you think that he should be holding his breath? What do you think?
No, that was going to be my friendly advice to him, is I wouldn't say hold your breath, because that might be the last of Ryan Helsley we see. If he's holding his breath, waiting for the Cardinals to call him. I mean, they've talked about they want to shed payroll. They're not going to go out and spend. He had a down year, especially after he got traded. He didn't have the success that he had before, but he's still going to be a coveted arm that's going to cost money, and it just doesn't seem like a fit for the Cardinals. It's weird when you're in that position and it's your first time being a free agent, and maybe even your third or fourth time. You have to be politically correct. The great thing about not playing anymore and not having to answer to anyone is I don't have to be politically correct, and they ain't calling, buddy. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I don't see them calling either. And that's nothing against Chaim. That's nothing against anything. Maybe he hopes they call because he was like, dang, my first gallivanting outside of the Cardinals organization didn't go well. Maybe I felt comfortable there and I really enjoyed being comfortable. So I don't think the Cardinals are calling. Sorry.
Okay. Well, sorry, Ryan. We don't think the Cardinals are calling. Don't hold your breath. I
you
think
can
that
call. Maybe you can call. You call.
Me call? What, me call? What?
No,
what
not
am
you.
I
I'm saying Ryan. Ryan, you call. You call. Call the boss.
Don't do that.
Call Ryan and ask him to guest speak to my class at IU. How about that? All right. Jim Hayes and Kyle Gibson welcome Ryan Helsley in the latest Cardinal Territory episode. It's out now on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. All right, it's time for Slap Hands. I don't know a whole lot.
Basically, I'm showing you what hat I have, and it's a Rays hat. I wore it for you and for Pete, okay? But the reality is, this is my time to stay. This is my time to say a little something. I'm never going to say anything about a woman's age, but you haven't been alive when Indiana basketball has won a championship. So you cannot claim Indiana basketball. Football, I'm okay with.
You listen here. I'm a loyal fan. You're right. I wasn't alive.
Sorry, show's over.